How does Alessio? Hope you're well, and welcome to this quick update on Bitcoin and cryptos. Now, in just a few moments, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen here, or likely to happen on Bitcoin. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you something I did recently that could shock you. This might come as a shock to you, in fact. You see, guys, as I'm sure has come as no surprise to you, while Bitcoin has been doing pretty much nothing, and just been going sideways, wibbly wobbly in the last few days, pretty much almost all the other markets, all the other crypto markets have been, doing quite nicely. The altcoin market is on fire. Take a look at XRP, for example. XRP is doing beautifully so far. By the way, I want to confess to you something I did recently. Again, this might come as a shock to some of you, because recently, a few days ago, I actually bought some XRP. Yes, guys, you heard that correctly. I actually bought some XRP a few days ago, and I'll tell you why. By the way, I'm sure there are some hardcore Bitcoin bulls watching this video right now, and as soon as I mentioned that I bought some altcoins like XRP and Litecoin, they're probably doing this. Well, the truth is, guys, that the reason I bought some XRP, I bought some Litecoin as well, and Dash as well, I'll tell you why. The fact is, I like the charts of these markets. So I make my decisions based on the charts. And look, I don't really care about the fundamentals. You can say what you want about the fundamentals. Some people don't like XRP, some people don't like Litecoin. But when I looked at a chart of XRP, I loved it. And this is actually something, I mentioned this quite recently in the member video, which is that the momentum on the pulse, let me just show you. There were several things happening on the chart of XRP that made me really interested. The fact that we had this massive spike lower and then this jump, that showed to me there was some interest happening, some interest in buying XRP happening behind the scenes. The fact that XRP actually was forming a sort of, but it looks like some sort of bottoming formation. Now, I'm not saying this is a bottom, but it was holding this level nicely. And something extremely important, divergence, bullish divergence, followed by rising momentum. And I mentioned the rising momentum on the pulse a few days ago, actually some days ago in the member video. The fact that the momentum on the pulse was going the other way, in the upside direction, as you can see here, towards the zero. And that showed to me there's a high probability this might actually fire to the upside, and we might see some upside momentum here. And in fact, that is exactly what happened here. Fire to the upside, pushing XRP higher. So I started nibbling, pretty much buying a small amount of XRP about here. And actually, yesterday, I'll tell you something else. Yesterday, when XRP made this pullback, so XRP dropped back down to the 8 EMA, I actually sold some Bitcoin and I started buying more XRP. And again, I know that might come as a shock to many people out there. They're probably thinking, how dare you sell Bitcoin and buy XRP? Why would you do that? Guys, the fact is, look, I just followed the charts. Having said that, I just want to make sure I'm very clear about this. I do have a stop loss. Okay, so please don't think that I'm trading without a stop loss here. Okay, I have a stop loss here. In fact, I brought my stop loss now to break even. So even if XRP suddenly collapses and goes down again, so what? I don't care. I probably will be stopped out for a very small loss, or probably at break even. All right, so that's the first thing I'm going to say about that. Also, I bought some Litecoin as well. Now, I bought Litecoin about a week ago, and the reason I think should become quite obvious to some of you because of this. In fact, this is something I mentioned in the member video now for some time, which is the trend line. So there's a trend line, very beautiful trend line, as you can see here, which, again, Litecoin has been holding here. If I just draw this right here so you can see it right there, and it held this trend line beautifully right there. Now, there are some people who are speculating, is this perhaps wave 2? So for example, is this wave 1? Is this wave 2? And could this be the start of wave 3? Now, I'm going to discuss this a bit more detail in the Sunday member video. So if you're a member, do check out our member video on Sunday. All right. Now, the question is also this. There's a question we should ask is Litecoin forming a brand new uptrend? Or is this a correction? Again, I'm going to cover that for you in a member video on Sunday. So Litecoin is quite interesting, and Dash, by the way, I got to tell you one thing, guys. Even though I like Dash as a crypto, I hate the price movement. So the price movement on Dash is just atrocious. It's horrible. Just take a look at it. It has this massive spikes, which I absolutely hate. Look at that. I hate these spikes on Dash. Happens all the time. I don't see it on the other cryptos that much, but on Dash it happens all the time. Look at these massive spikes up and down, up and down. So got to be very careful with this one. Ethereum, beautifully. Look at Ethereum. Just been outperforming. Ethereum has been outperforming Bitcoin. Again, if you don't believe me, all you got to do is type in ETH BTC into TradingView. And there it is. Without a doubt, ETH BTC is rising. And again, whenever you see something like this happening, that's when I get interested. So divergence, positive divergence, moving average crossover happening here as well. Beautiful movement above the 55 daily moving average here. It looks like it might be the start of a wave 3 here, EOS. Now, let me just say something about EOS here. You might remember that I mentioned EOS in a previous video. And here's what I'm going to say about EOS. So since the time I made that video about EOS, it has moved nicely higher. So this might be the start of a new uptrend, but let me just make sure I mention this. In the previous video, I mentioned that the support level I'm watching is 3.4. And I said if EOS moves below 3.4, that's it. I'm getting out. I'm not interested. I'm going to raise that support line now. So on EOS, I'm raising the support from 3.4 to 3.6. Okay? So that's my new support level on EOS. So in other words, if EOS moves below velocity, these green dots you see here, and it closes, if it closes below that and closes below 3.6, I don't care. I'm not interested. So I'm just getting out.
No, never. So I'm out.
I'm not a hodler. I have a stop loss and I have parameters. Okay, so I'm not one of those guys who holds forever. I'm just looking at support levels and I'm looking at resistance levels. That's just the way I like to look at things. So 3.6 is the new support on EOS. It needs to protect that level at a minimum for me to see any uptrend developing here on this or not. Okay, let's take a look now at Bitcoin now. Let's go back to the chart of Bitcoin. So here's what I want to say about Bitcoin here, and just keeping it simple. So you can see that Bitcoin has been holding that trend line support, that blue line, all right? And it did actually drop below it yesterday. You probably noticed that yesterday, Bitcoin temporarily dropped below that trend line, but managed to get back above it again, beautifully, in fact. I'm just going an 8-hour chart. So I'm going to switch to an 8-hour or 480-minute chart time frame. You can see it quite clearly. There's that blue trend line right there, okay? And notice what it did. It went below it, closed below it, and then quickly went back above it again. So that's quite a bullish movement, right? Why? Because it's showing there's interest. It shows there's bullish interest pushing Bitcoin back up above the trend line here, okay? So that's a good thing for Bitcoin. But there is a but coming here, which is this. That level now is going to become absolutely important, that low. Okay, that low that Bitcoin made at 9,600 is now absolutely key, absolutely important. Because if Bitcoin once again fails to hold this trend line, and if Bitcoin in the next few days, or maybe today, if it drops back down again and comes and takes out that low, that 9,600 low, that's it. I mean, we're going lower. If Bitcoin takes out that low, 9,600, or even perhaps retest that level, very likely we're moving down to 9,300. And you guys know what that means, right? If Bitcoin moves back down to 9,300, brace for impact. And again, if you don't know the reason, go and watch my previous video because I covered this already in detail. So Charlie and I, we already discussed this. So again, if Bitcoin comes back down to 9,300, that's it. About a 70%, perhaps even 80% probability, we're going to break that level. And we break 9,300, yes, guys, brace for impact. We're very likely going to flush down lower, potentially significantly lower. And again, I mentioned that already in a previous video. All right, guys, now just to mention, there is also another possibility, which I covered in the previous video, which is if it tests 9,300, we might bounce, but it doesn't matter. That won't save it. Because again, a bounce very likely means we're going to break that level anyway. All right, by the way, a couple of things happening on this chart, which are quite worrying on the daily time frame chart, which is the momentum. So this momentum is now starting to drop back down again towards a zero line. So that's not good for Bitcoin. It's coming to test that trend line once again. That's not good for Bitcoin. So look, if Bitcoin is going to truly break out higher, it needs to do it in the next few days. It's as simple as that. Okay, so I want to make sure I mention this. If Bitcoin wants to break to the upside, that must happen in the next few days. At least perhaps by Sunday or Monday. If it doesn't do that, then that's going to be quite bearish for Bitcoin. It's probably frustrating for a lot of people who are, watching all these altcoins, like Ethereum rallying nicely higher, Litecoin going up, XRP is going up, and Bitcoin is just sitting there doing nothing whatsoever. It is frustrating for a lot of folks out there. By the way, guys, before I finish the video, I just want to say something quickly, which is that last night on Thursday evening, we had a fantastic webinar. Thanks very much indeed if you registered and attended the webinar. The webinar was on the top exit strategies. So if you missed this webinar, or if you want to get a chance to see it again, I'll be posting the recording for this webinar probably by tomorrow on Saturday, or maybe by today. So guys, if you haven't registered on that link already, go ahead and register because that's how you're going to get the recording. That is leadingtrader.com/exit strategy. register on that link, and we'll post you the recording very likely today or tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks very much. I'll see you guys in the next video update. Bye for now.